Hi, everyone. Welcome back to day 11 of Vlogmas. Yay! I am Dr. V, and thank you so much for joining me. So if you're new to me on Vlogmas, welcome. I am Vernita Glenn White, and I go by Dr. V. It's not just a name I made up, but actually the credentials that I have. And I just like the vibe of Dr. V. So that's what you will hear me say over and over. And if you go to any of my other social media platforms, you will notice a V. I am Dr. V. I love all things V. And yeah. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about how to combat perfectionism. Yes, perfectionism is a thing that cripples a lot of high achieving people. And you'll hear me say women a lot because I am focused on high achieving women. I am a woman. However, these can go for anyone. And like I said, I work with high achieving women and a few good men. So I don't want to discount anyone if you don't want to label yourself, but you know that you're a high achieving person, this could be for you. So stay tuned. So number one way to, and these are let me preface this. When I say these things, these are things that work for me and worked for a few clients that I've had. You know, it may not work for you, but my hope is that you will get something out of one of these five, if not all five of them. So number one, I would suggest embracing perfectionism just a little bit. You know, I know for me, when I tried to overcome perfectionism and I took like a lot of like online quizzes, I looked at the definition of perfectionism, all of that, and I had it pretty bad. But then I started thinking about like the good sides of being a perfectionist. And I realized that if I embraced it just a little bit and not try to get rid of it completely out of my life, things end up being a little better. Like, so what if I like things to be nice and I don't want to put out crap as much as I can? So I'm not saying that you get paralyzed by the being so perfect that you won't move, but there's a certain level of I want to put out the best work that I possibly can for me. You know, you have these high standards for your work, and I think that is a great thing to have, especially as a high achiever. You naturally have it anyway, and I'm pretty sure that 98% of high achievers have some form of perfectionism in their DNA somewhere, because otherwise, how would you get to the level of where you are if you didn't have it just a little bit? I think that most of us who are high achievers don't get to a certain level because we have too much perfectionism. But when I noticed a change in me, when I broke my personal glass ceiling, it was because I let go of some things of being a perfectionist. I wasn't so ingrained into the work to where it paralyzed me, but I did embrace it a little bit to keep those standards, to stay on task, to pay attention to all the details, and all of the things that I thought were good about being a perfectionist. I still hold on to that just a little bit, but I don't consume myself like, oh my gosh, it's either perfect or it doesn't work. No. So that is, for me, tip number one to share with you to get over perfectionism. Just embrace it a little bit because I don't think it's all bad. The second way to get rid of perfectionism is to try the three-step method. And I learned this method from a mindset coach, right? I'm like, what mindset? What does this have to do with me being a perfectionist? Well, for me, I used to struggle with, oh my gosh, trying to get everything right at that moment, right when I was going to do it. So if it was to create a program, if it was going to create a video, if it was going to create, anything, a lesson plan, anything, I would try to get it all done right then and there, and it had to be perfect, and I would stress myself out until I learned the three-step method where you plan out 3 steps ahead. So if I was going to make a video, step one or day one, I come up with all the thoughts about that video. Step two or day two, I go ahead and go ahead and film that video. And then step three or day three, and I keep saying days or steps because it depends on what works for you. Then I would map out, okay, now I need to edit or create the thumbnail and upload. So I will break it down instead of saying, oh my gosh, I have to do a video and get overwhelmed. I know that sounds small and it's like, really? But as a perfectionist, wanting everything to be perfect right at the start, it became overwhelming. And the project would just consume me and nothing would get done, right? Or if it had to be perfect that day, I felt like I had to do everything at once. If I wanted to write a book, it had to be done in this amount of time. If I wanted to upload a video, everything had to be done right then and there. If I wanted to create a course, everything had to be done right then and there. And I would get overwhelmed, and then I would stop, and then I would procrastinate. So I can still embrace a little bit of my perfectionism, but then I spread it out over time so that the task won't become overwhelming. And then I get to still be quote unquote perfect to my standards for like step 1, step 2, and step 3. So that's my tip for you. If you are struggling with perfectionism, try the 3-step method. Maybe you need to extend it to 4, depending on how large the project is. And then that way you break things down into smaller pieces. You have more control over the smaller pieces. And then you can pay attention to those details that you like to do as a high achiever and maybe suffering from perfectionism. You can do that in smaller dosage. Yeah, in smaller sections. That's what I would say. So that is tip number 2. Try the 3-day method to combat perfectionism. Number 3, oh my gosh, I did not do this at all. And then I saw a huge difference when I did do this. And it is ask for critique, helpful critique, not criticism, not really people's opinions, but someone that you trust to give you an honest opinion about your work, who will not sugarcoat it, but not be so mean to where it crushes your spirit. You want to get someone to look at your work to give you some feedback. And I know for me, I would never do that because I had flashbacks from my dissertation days to where every time I would submit part of my dissertation, it would get ripped up by my chair. And that scarred me. I didn't realize how much that scarred me until I started doing my personal development journey. And I talk a little bit about it in my book that's coming out, Embracing Grit for Greatness. But I didn't realize like how much that scarred me. So I remember things that I wanted to do after I graduated. I didn't ask for people's opinions, and then I would just put it out there. Thank goodness, like a lot of my work was good, but the process and the mental anguish that I had on myself to at least put it out there was too much. And sometimes I'll be honest, I didn't put a lot of as much as I could have. A lot of that didn't go out because if I didn't trust myself, or if I thought it wasn't up to my invisible standards, because we all have standards, but then I feel we have invisible standards, like really, you're not going to get all of this perfect. But if I had some good counsel or good guidance at the time to really look at it, to say, you know what, Vernita, this is good to go, put it out there and go forth. I did get helpful critique when it was time to do my book. And that was the first time that I actually got critique on a major project. So I sent out my manuscript to a couple of people, and some of them were family, some of them were friends, some of them are in my mastermind group. And I just put it out there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like dying inside because I never asked for help on projects and things like that. People would always send me stuff to review, but I would rarely send anything out to people to review because I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna rip it up and I don't know how I can take it. But when I did that, I said, this is what I need you to look at. That's what I learned. This is what I need you to look at. I don't need you to say anything about this over here unless that's your area of expertise. Let me know your honest feedback. So I put boundaries, not so much to protect my feelings, but I didn't need anyone nitpicking on something that I wasn't concerned about, so I hope that makes sense. Like, don't tell me that you don't like the font or the color right now. I just need to know if the message makes sense. When I send you my cover or something, then you can tell me about the fonts and colors and all of that. So I learned how to first set boundaries and then ask for help. And I'm noticing the more that I do that, the more I start trusting myself and letting go of that perfectionist monster. So I embrace it a little bit as far as the quality of work and the standards of the work that I want to produce, but I don't let it overwhelm me to where I feel like I can't share my work with someone because they're going to rip it up and it's going to be a reflection on me. Nope, that's not true. So I got some people to look at stuff, and I've been able to produce more content. So I don't want you to confuse, like you're not getting people's opinions or you're not seeking their advice, like you don't trust yourself. But well, a little bit. I didn't trust myself because I knew how I was carrying that perfectionist monster. But it was enough to say, here, look at what I can't, look at what I'm giving you. I do want your advice. But at the same time, if it didn't mesh well with me, then thank you, but I'm choosing not to listen. So yeah, I don't want to send conflicting messages. So I hope that's not, I hope I'm not being conflicting. You want to embrace helpful critiques, but you don't want it to be so much where you don't fully trust yourself. I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope that makes sense. Let me know down in the comments if you need more clarification, because then I will come back and do that. So that was number 3. Number 4, set the intention to produce work and share it. Let me tell y'all this. I didn't get this epiphany until 2019, last year. I was working with the business coach and I was like, I can produce everything that we learned about in this course. I got all of my stuff together. Everything's on my computer. I got this, but something about me releasing it to the world is just, I can't do it because I think it's not good enough and it's not perfect and all of this stuff. And she told me, she was like, it's not that you're not capable or you don't trust yourself. You need to set the intentions to not only produce, because you're doing great, like your willpower, your intentions, all of that to create is there. What's not there is the intentions to produce and share it to other people. After all, if you want to be an entrepreneur, or if you're a content creator, or whatever you do, if it's any type of service that you do requires you to give something to someone else, I've learned that I had to set the intention to not only produce it, but to also share it. Part of being a perfectionist, it was like I would hoard all of my knowledge and my content and analyze over it, make sure everything was perfect, try to figure out what the other person was going to think about when they saw this. And not saying that those things are bad, but when you do it too much, it paralyzes you again from actually putting out the work. If you all could see my other laptop and the hard drive alone of the information that is stored on there, I was like, oh my gosh, I am a hoarder. And I'm a hoarder of content that's finished, completed work, but not sharing and not producing because I felt that it wasn't perfect enough. Get over that. So if you're battling with perfectionism, set the intention, because if you're a high achiever, you're going to produce. But if you're not at the level to where you want to be, that means you need to set the intention to not only produce, but also to share it. So that was number 4, set the intention to produce and share. Number 5, something that was major again for me, like I had all of these mind blowing epiphanies coming out because I always felt myself being stuck. And I used to say like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, and I would wear that like it was a badge of honor. And it was like, no, perfectionists are broke, number 1, and perfectionists don't do as much good in the world as they should. I do, like I said before, I do think we have a little bit of perfectionism. Like it's part of who I am. I'm not saying I'm going to get rid of it completely, but I've learned out how not to wear that label like it's a badge of honor. That's what I'm saying. All right, number 5, again, major, not being attached to the outcome. What? Yes, not being attached to the outcome. And I used to be like, well, shouldn't I care what it's going to look like at the end and things like that? Yes, you should care. You should have the standards. But if you create something, because I've created a lot of things and I put it out there, like a lot of free gifts. I had some workshops and webinars that I put out there, and it didn't do as well as I thought. And before I had this, this epiphany, it would just like crush me. And I was like, oh my gosh, no one wants to listen to me. Why am I doing this? Maybe I should just stay where I am. No. But when I realized that my job is to produce the content that God has given me and, do the best that I can with the information that I have, make sure that it's good quality to the best that I can, and make sure that my intentions are to provide value for anyone who wants to listen, then I detach myself from, I wonder how many people are gonna watch it, how many people are gonna show up, how many people are gonna enroll in my course, how many people are gonna buy my book. When I started detaching myself from those outcomes, I became more free to produce, right? I didn't get caught up in, oh, this has to be perfect because I want someone else to buy it, enroll, or listen, whatever the case may be. It was like, no, I'm producing this because eventually someone's going to see it. And I've done my part to share this knowledge to whomever that may be. But I've done my part and provided value. And I not only produced, but I also shared. So I've learned to detach myself from certain outcomes. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't know outcomes. Like if you're in business, like this is Entrepreneur Vlogmas, you need to know numbers, you need to know outcomes and things like that. You need to know bottom line, money, all of that. But you don't want to be so attached to the numbers to where you're forgetting that your main purpose, and I'm just speaking for me and a lot of other entrepreneurs that I know, your main purpose is to provide value and service for others because people are waiting. They may not come right now, but eventually they will start coming around. So those are 5 ways that I've learned how to, I'll say, embrace perfectionism and overcome it a little bit, like not being so like I'm a perfectionist and I just things just have to be perfect. Get out of that because that's not cute. It's not a badge of honor. I do like parts of being a perfectionist or perfectionism. I do like a little bit of that, but not to the point where it consumes me. All right, so I would love to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts. Which one of the 5 ways to combat perfectionism helped you? And if you have another reason, I would love to hear that as well, because after all, we are a community of learners and you may have come here to hear and learn from me, but then I also want to hear and learn from you. All right. So I am Dr. V. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me, and I will catch you next time. Bye.